Welcome back to another episode of A Girl in a Blanket. I am so glad that you guys are here and listening in. Let me know in the comments where you are listening from. In my previous episode, I had talked about my whole entire story with parts and pieces, of course, missing. But in this episode, I just really want to cover the emotional aspect of adoption and what that's like from the get-go up to the whole entire process is over. So in the orphanage, we were oftentimes told that there were families interested in us and they would send little care packages. And I've gotten a few of those, which was really nice. I was extremely grateful for those. However, it started becoming a little bit discouraging, not knowing whether or not a family is going to adopt me. I've always dreamed of a family. At that age, I just wanted to belong to a family. I wanted to be part of something, just wanted to be included. If you guys don't know, if your child or you are not emotionally nurtured or taken care of, it starts to bleed into your adulthood and it starts to affect your mental health, as I stated in my previous episode. At a young age, all of the kids in the orphanage would always talk about how much I was not wanted. And it was actually interesting when my parents came in and adopted me. And after the court finalized and said, yes, you can adopt her, my parents left and went back to America to finalize their papers. And all of the kids in the orphanage would constantly tease me and say, they don't want you. They went back to America. They're not going to come and get you. And my hopes would get dashed. It was like New Year's Eve or something like that, and I was looking out into the distance, and like at a very young age, I mean, I was 10, and I was looking up at the stars, and I said, God, if you are real, please bring back my parents. And lo and behold, they did end up coming back, and I was, here in America. And I think one of the things I always wanted to tell those kids is, look at me now. Here I am sitting in my living room on a couch recording a podcast about my whole entire story, which is incredible. But I did want to talk a little bit more in depth about the emotional aspect of adoption. I think the exciting part is that eventually, finally, I was adopted and I felt like I belonged to something. However, at a young age, it was easy to oftentimes see myself as a monster or as somebody who did not belong somewhere. And oftentimes I did feel like a black sheep of the family, though it was never intended for me to feel that way, but emotionally it started to affect my mental health. I started to act out. I started going out with friends a little bit later than I should have, or I would try to participate in activities like I would go to band and I would try to just be like super cool like all those other kids because I just wanted attention. No other kid would not want attention, right? And so I just wanted that. I wanted to belong to something. And my family always made sure I was included. And of course, there was times, obviously, where punishment was needed so then I could grow and learn. And as a kid, I always thought that it wasn't right for me to be punished for some reason. I felt like I was innocent and this great person, but obviously I was not. And so I had to learn. And I felt like at that age that because I was adopted, my parents were treating me differently. And it affected my mental health for a long time. And not that my parents did treat me differently, they just treat each child in a different way because each child has a love language that the other child doesn't. And that is something I've learned over the last couple of years being a parent myself, is that each child just has their own needs and each child gets the attention that is more dependent on what they need at that time. But as an adopted girl, it was really hard for me, especially through puberty years, to really feel like I was wanted. And a lot of it came from the fact that all of my childhood, nobody wanted to be around me. My mom was constantly gone doing something with drugs or whatever, and I didn't know. I think I was alone a lot of my youth, majority of it. And it really does affect how you see parents, and it doesn't exactly gain respect of a parent because you don't know if you can trust that parent and you don't know if they're going to come back. I developed abandonment issues, I developed anxiety and post-traumatic stress, and I was in therapy. My mom would put me in therapy and we would talk about it, and I just felt like I started making progress and I started to understand things a lot better. But there was a point in time where I became so broken that I got to a really, really dark place in my life. And I wanted to run away from my problems. And I would also develop deep connections with other people because I just wanted somebody to like me. I wanted people to think that I was so cool. And the abandonment issues was a huge factor in that, because if you have been abandoned or if you've been neglected, you know that you attach yourself really fast to people. You just have to, you magnetize. But then as soon as somebody starts paying attention to you, you just kind of withdraw and you're like, wait, hold on, you give me attention, I don't want that. And so that was me. And I had a lot of guys that were interested in me in my youth, but I was attached to them because of my abandonment issues, not because I actually liked them. And I hope this all makes sense. But it all stemmed from the fact that at a very young age, I was abandoned. And my parents tried their very, very best to help me feel included. They were always there if I needed them. They always tried to talk to me about what I was feeling, how I was doing. And it's actually interesting. My mom and I talked today, and she talked about how something that helped her in the orphanage is that they made this split pea soup. And this is all about the emotional connection of a parent with a child from an adopter perspective, like adoptive parent perspective, to an adoptee. My mom actually apparently never really liked split pea soup. And after she was at the orphanage and they made split pea soup, she thought it was really good. And then the second big kids school had that as well. And apparently, I didn't even know this until today, you guys. Today, thank you, Mom. If you're listening, thank you for telling me, because it was really touching. My mom said that the reason she started making split pea soup is because that was a special connection that her and I had. And she said that is the one thing that she felt like that we bonded over most, like from that orphanage, because that's something that we both enjoyed. And I remember as a young kid, my mom would make split pea soup because she's like, what would you like to eat? And I was like, split pea soup. And I didn't realize that she wasn't a huge fan of it until she came to the orphanage, and she was making it because I liked it. And I know for my birthday, sometimes she would make it too. But I didn't realize it was so much deeper. Like it was on a deeper level of where it was. Emotional connection from an adoptive parent to an adoptee is so much different. The both perspectives are completely different lines of prism. For me, growing up, I always felt like I was an outcast. I look different than my family. I act different than my family. I have a different set of emotional skills than my family, in the sense of I react to different situations differently than other kids do. And it did affect my high school years and affected my college years. I would barely talk to my parents because I just didn't feel like they loved me, not because of what they did, but because as an adoptee, I felt like I had to withdraw myself because I didn't want to be loved for some reason. And my mom was talking to me today about how my mom and my grandma both had addiction issues. And I think because of that nature cycle, like that natural cycle that came from it, it made me addicted to loneliness. And I feel like that is very possible because I do appreciate the time I have to be alone. And because of that loneliness aspect, I became accustomed to wanting it. I mean, I went on dates and stuff like that in college, like all the time. I was like almost every weekend I was on a date. But I was lonely. And I liked it. Sometimes I didn't, as a natural human nature for us to want to belong, for us wanting somebody there. But the loneliness just became natural. I didn't want to socialize. I didn't want to be around people because I felt like I was inconveniencing people. And when you grow up from neglect and you grow up thinking that nobody wants you and nobody cares about you, you become a person that's like, well, nobody wants me, nobody cares about me. And when I met my husband, he wanted to be with me. He would take just an hour out of his day just to be with me. And that was really weird for me because in my prior relationships, it wasn't like that. Nobody wanted to be with me. Nobody really wanted to spend that time with me. And finding somebody in life as an adoptee who wants to be with you all the time and who wants to spend that time with you individually, one-on-one, it became a really great attachment situation. And I think as a adoptee, my love language became quality time over my years as like growing up. It's been my love language because that's all I wanted. My birth mom didn't care. She didn't care. She wanted me to steal from people. She wanted me to really not be the greatest person. She didn't teach me good things. The only good thing she did was have me, which I'm grateful. And she kept me alive for a little bit until I ran away. But yeah, emotional aspects of an adoptee are just so deep, and it is the constant fear of abandonment never ends. It never goes away. I still feel like that to this day. I feel like I have to please people. I have to be just the way that people want me to be because I don't want them to leave. I don't. And my mom and dad were always there for me. I mean, we would sit down and have really good, great in-depth conversations. I remember my dad would talk about how I was breaking the cycles of addiction. I was breaking the cycles of not getting through education, of getting through education because my adoptive mom never had like this education that I have. And my mom and I would talk about becoming a better human by becoming less judgmental, by becoming more aware of other people and their needs. And she would teach me service. She would teach me gratitude. Not because she was saying that I wasn't that way, but she was trying to help me focus on other aspects of my life that were more important than my emotional trauma. Emotional trauma is so real. It doesn't end because you grow up thinking, why me? Why can't I be loved? To coming into a family, to becoming married into families where you are wanted, where you are needed. And so if you are an adoptee and you have felt in your life that your family didn't want you, that your spouse didn't want you, that is not always the case. Now, I know that there's a lot of stories out there where the story is not like mine, where the stories are much different. It's like literally black and white stories. I am so grateful for my parents. And I'm so thankful that they came and got me. Because without them, I really would not have my family. I wouldn't have my kids. And I wouldn't be a better person than I am today. Honestly, I'm not even sure what I would have been doing in Kazakhstan. I don't even know who I would be today if it wasn't for them. And I'm so incredibly grateful that emotional support is still there from them. My mom said she wanted to talk to me today, and for some reason I was just feeling like I don't really want to, but I talked to her, and it was so healthy for me to hear what she was saying and to hear her out and hear her perspective on everything. I mean, we've talked about it before, but not like into this depth as an adult. It is so much different. And that emotional connection that I have to my mom is so much different than I have to my birth mom. To my birth mom, I don't really feel connected. Do I want to know if she's okay? Yes, but am I 85% sure she's not okay? Yes, but I just hope that one day if I do end up, making it back over to Kazakhstan, maybe I'll find her. Maybe I'll find my sister. And And maybe that emotional connection will come. But right now, my emotional connection with my parents is so much stronger. I mean, I lived 20 minutes away from my parents, and sometimes I wish I still lived with them because I just love them. I love spending time with them. And sometimes when we have to leave, I feel really sad because I've developed that connection of trust. I've developed the connection of love because they have been there for me. They have seen me from a broken young woman to now a broken slash fixed-ish young mom. And every day I try really hard in my day to day with my kids to make sure that they feel loved, because I don't want my kids growing up without me. I don't want them not to have, like, I don't want them to have abandonment issues. I don't want them to have constant anxiety, because I have consistent and constant anxiety that if I say or do something wrong, somebody will run away. And I've had that happen before. And so it's not like, I can prevent it, because I can only be me. And if somebody doesn't like me, then that's their prerogative. And so does my anxiety and my abandonment issues and all the other mental health problems I have stem from being an adoptee? Yes. Do I sometimes wish that my mom, my birth mom, was in a better situation before she had me? Do I wish that she was more stable and not a drug addict? Sometimes, yeah, because it would have been nice to grow up with one mom, but 90% of me is more grateful for the mom I have now, for my husband, for my dad, for my sisters and my brother and my sister-in-laws. And I'm so thankful for them, because throughout my years, they were always there, helping me feel loved. I'm sorry, guys. Try not to cry. Emotional connections for parents and for children is so important. So if you're debating on adopting, you cannot treat your child any different than you treat your children in the sense of how much you love them. You have to pick that little human up, or that teenager, and you have to tell them how much you love them. If you just adopt kids just for the sake of work or labor, please don't adopt kids. They don't deserve that. Adopt children because your home truly needs them. And to my family and my sisters and all my siblings, I just want you guys to know that I do love you guys, and I'm so thankful for this time I've had to be part of our family. And I'm grateful that you guys have accepted me, because acceptance in any family form is so important, because emotionally it does affect your children and me. And I'm so grateful for it. Sorry for crying. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Please stay tuned for next week's episode, because I will be having a guest on the podcast. And I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Thank you for tuning in, and make sure to follow and share. Thank you. Good night.